Now you showed your age.
I nearly said Dave Dobbin, but that was just a bit of a joke. But why don't we get started then, shall we? Hey, really appreciate everyone joining us today for our second webinar, actually. And some of you may have been on the first webinar that we did a few weeks ago, last month. And today's topic is the future of CX, or customer experience. My name's Michael Petrocelli. I'm the channel sales manager for NICE CXone. I'm very pleased to be looking after New Zealand, have done so for many years, with other contact center vendors as well, some domiciled in New Zealand. So have a great deal of affection for New Zealand, understand the market as well. Today's session really is about, putting the customer experience at the heart of everything that we do, and actually focusing on, the future of customer experience, as far as we're concerned, is now. But today we'll talk about some other tools that you can use from a modern workplace perspective, but also from a CX perspective around, conversational AI, bots, AI and automation, and some of the digital tools that are available now to enable your customers to get better insights into your customers from the time they start their journey in communicating with you to the time they finish. So I just want to quickly add a couple of housekeeping things. There may have been a bit of an issue around the Uber Eats vouchers that we will be providing. If you haven't received those, or if there's an issue in redeeming those, we will rectify that and sort that out post-event, and you'll be able to use them at your leisure. So yeah, we apologise if there's any inconvenience that you've experienced on that, but we'll fix it for you and make sure that you're able to enjoy something at your leisure. If you please, by all means, if you want to have a chat to us, please use the chat window. I'm sure we'd love to hear from you, because this is all about you, and we'll try to make it as interactive as possible. So the first speaker, other than myself today, is David Ollison. He's the Modern Comms Customer Success Manager at Microsoft in New Zealand. We're really thrilled that Microsoft are part of our session today, and David's going to take you through the hybrid work and modern communications. And haven't we all experienced the hybrid workplace over the last 2 years? So with that, I'll hand over to David.
Thank you very much, Michael. And hello, everyone. As Michael just said, I'm a Modern Communications Customer Success Manager. I have a particular focus on Teams, and within Teams, particularly on Teams Phone and Teams meeting scenarios. So today I just wanted to talk with you a little bit about how we're moving in from a remote working environment into a hybrid working environment, and what Microsoft is doing to try and help support that change in workforce. So I thought I'd start with a little brief history of Microsoft Unified Communications within New Zealand over the years, over the past decade or so. Just to show that New Zealand has actually been quite an early adopting country for our technology. If you go back as far as 2007, Office Communications Server was quite reasonably widely deployed within New Zealand, and actually one or two of the deployments featured voice, which was very rare at the time. The next product version was Link 2010. I was actually in the team that produced Link 2010, and I left Microsoft in the States and came to New Zealand in early 2011. And the first deployment of Link 2010 with voice was a local government council in mid-2011, so quite forward thinking. Then along came Skype for Business, and there was strong uptake throughout the country of Skype for Business for voice as well. And then, of course, as we all know, Teams was released in 2017, and the pandemic really started to kick in early 2020. And we saw Teams initially being used for the collaboration capabilities, for Teams, for files, that kind of thing, less so for the real-time comms. That was still mostly Skype for Business. But then with the pandemic, suddenly Teams became the hub for teamwork, where all meetings, chat, calls, and collaboration were being conducted on Teams. We saw an explosion of use across the country, but now that we're hopefully coming towards the end of the restrictions and we'll be looking to have more people coming back to work, we now need to focus what was a great platform for remote work into a great platform for hybrid work. The paradox here is that a survey shows that roughly equivalent numbers of people were actually quite happy with the flexibility and the remote working style that the pandemic brought along with it. But equally, people are now yearning for more face-to-face contact. We need to marry these two seemingly conflicting requirements together. The way that we're going to do that, way that we do that, is to focus our platform, our solution on people, the places where those people work, and the processes that help those people have a smooth, productive working environment. All of this is going to be being run under Microsoft Teams, where we meet, chat, call, collaborate, and now automate as well. So if we look at people first, last year Microsoft released what we're calling our customer experience platform, which is Viva. I'm not going to go into this in great detail, but basically there are 4 pillars: connections, insights, learning, and topics. Connections is your next generation of corporate intranet. Insights is based on workplace analytics and gives you both personal and team level analytics of your working behaviors. Learning aggregates all learning sources such as LinkedIn Learning, but also third-party sources into the same place. And topics allows the surfacing and definition of various topics within the business jargon. Now, places. I just like to play this little video for a bit. So think of ourselves two years ago. You're working from home and you really just have a laptop. You should have the same first-class experience as your colleagues who are working in the room. So if we start off from the perspective of somebody working from home, moving into the room, we have released a whole host through our OEM vendors. We've released a whole host of different Microsoft Teams room system type solutions for the in-room Teams meeting environment. We allow the backgrounds to be changed and for the audience to be organized in different ways. We allow putting your hand up to ask a question, reactions. If there's a Surface Hub and a whiteboard that's in the room, then the same whiteboard can be edited by the person that's working from home. So it's a very inclusive environment where everybody has a seat at the table and you don't feel excluded from this. In terms of processes, we have a Power Platform. So we have Power Apps for building custom applications. We have Power Virtual Agents for building bots. And I believe that NICE are going to talk a little bit about bots going forward, which is great. We have Power BI, which is basically allowing data to be brought into where you are working, which is in Teams. And we have Power Automate. That allows the automation of mundane processes such as approvals and bookings and the like. So key to all of this is to actually modernize communications, to allow employees to be able to access their telephony as well as their other communications from wherever they are. And we do this by Teams Phone, where the calls are integrated, it meets business needs. The fact that it is a telephony system, but it is managed from the same Teams admin console as the rest of Teams, it doesn't add any additional burden, and it provides users with a flexible, budget-conscious devices. So how does customer care, how do third-party customer care solutions such as NICE CXone fit into this paradigm? Well, they fit very well indeed. Because a cloud-delivered customer care solution can leverage Teams as the hub for teamwork. And so agents can seamlessly leverage the benefits of both the customer CXone, in this case, and Teams without switching context. We also provide APIs to these vendors that allow the embedding of advanced capabilities like call recording. So CXone is a Microsoft certified solution for working with Teams. And these solutions are typically delivered by accredited partners. And today you're going to be hearing from one such accredited partner, which is Generation E. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to you, Michael.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate that. Hey, just before, I might just have a question. In terms of, teams and the contact center, we know that with, our development, we're looking to ensure there's a seamless transition between the front office and the back office. And obviously with Teams chat, there's more informal conversations that go on, and the traditional concept of a contact center is how to coordinate formal conversations. So we're seeing a huge change in the way you report on those types of interactions. But just in your view in the New Zealand market, are you seeing in your travels, this requirement to integrate Teams and CXone or any other contact center platform, for argument's sake? Are you seeing that more and more these days?
Yeah, I think there are some contact center solutions that are built on top of Teams, and some contact center solutions such as CXone that are standalone but integrate with Teams. Now, the latter example, I would say, are more powerful contact center solutions, the ones that are built standalone but then integrate with Teams. But I think what we're seeing is that Teams is increasingly becoming the hub for teamwork. You'll hear it described as a single pane of glass. It's almost that you at some level, solutions need to be integrating with Teams if they are, communications-based, customer care-based type solutions.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, we're seeing it all over the world, really. That that there's this divergence between, your UC platform, if you want to use that phraseology, and your contact center technology. It's becoming very, very embedded with each other and is equally as important. And with the advent of AI and bots and the like, we're seeing a much a blurring of the distinction between the front and the back office. Hey, really appreciate your time, David. Thank you for that. So now it's time to move on to Nice, and a man that actually knows the history of CX very well, because you've been immersed in CX for most of your career, if not all of it, Anthony. But yeah, it's my great pleasure now to introduce Anthony Brown, our Director of Solutions Consulting, who is going to be talking to you about NICE's vision of the future of customer experience. Anthony, that wasn't an ageist remark. It's just that you do have a lot of background.
It sounded like you were aging me, Michael. I don't know how comfortable I am with that. But
well, if anyone can, surely I can. Right.
No, that's good. Thank you very much, and absolute pleasure to be able to talk to you guys again this afternoon. We for those that were here a couple of weeks ago, we did cover a couple of these topics on the last session. There'll be a very small amount of overlap, but then we'll diverge for those that have been here before and those that weren't. Make sure we cover all of those different bases. So with that said, yes, thank you, Michael. I'm based over here in Australia, in Melbourne. I'm very much looking forward to getting back to New Zealand shortly, which I'm excited to see. It seems to be very much near-term prospect rather than some distance away as it seemed last time we spoke. But fantastic to be with you today, and so really looking forward to getting back over to see you face-to-face and in person. The object of the exercise here is just to look at the future customer experience solutions that we have, both within the NICE CXone portfolio, but also what's happening with customer expectations. And they've been changing rapidly, not just over the last 5 years, 6 years, but increasingly so over the last 2 particularly. And when we look at some of the things that have been occurring and the demands of customer expectations, the fundamental premise is always the same. We have some kind of needs event, be it a purchase, a resolution, or a schedule, an appointment. We need to check on order status or some kind of service requirement. But whenever we have one of these needs events, we expect the organizations to be able to deliver on the full range of our needs, regardless of what they may be, but also that we expect to be met on my preferred channel of choice. Now, by that, what I'm talking about is that for a long time we've had this view that the Generation Y don't want to call; they'd rather use web chat and mobile devices. But the reality is that my preferred channel of choice is not just driven by my generation or person preferences, is also driven by the context of where I am and what I'm doing. So if I'm in the car, I'm not going to want to choose your app or web chat or digital kind of channel. I'm going to call you because that's all I'm allowed to do from within my car. So the channel of choice is not something we can be as blinkered as looking at somebody's generation, but we do need to offer channel of choice so that when your customers, your patrons, have selected their device of choice, be it their computer, their mobile phone, their telephone, whatever it may be, that we can then, they've chosen the device, then what are the channels that we can service on that device and make sure that they're all available to the consumer easily, so that they don't have to go, okay, well, I can't get what I want on this device, I'm going to have to switch channels and go to a different device and a different channel, which is not necessarily my preference, because you waste my time when I do that. Michael touched on this briefly, as did David as well, around the bots. And there's an important word in here about offering intelligent self-service options, and the operative word being there, intelligent. We've all experienced, should we call it dumb self-service over the last X number of years. We've seen these attempts to drive bots or speech interfaces that have tried to, ultimately the objective of them was to deflect consumers from talking to the most expensive resource in many organizations, the people, the agents in the contact center. So they will look at deflection and containment, and whilst those are interesting terms and valuable terms to understand the business case of a self-service component, if it's at the expense of good customer experience, if they are annoying and frustrating, then you're doing yourself a huge disservice. So regardless of the channel of choice that your consumer has chosen, you need to be able to offer intelligent self-service on those channels in order that you can provide very simple and effective automation options to help reduce costs in the contact center that also deliver sensible customer service experiences as well. And of course, being able to move effortlessly between channels. Now, the term omni-channel has been around for many years. It tends to be a vendor-derived term rather than something that actually makes sense in a commercial organization. Historically, we'd look at things like, can you escalate a web chat to a voice call? Now that's all right use case. There are times when you need to do that. Technically, it's very easy to achieve. Operationally, in a contact center, it's astonishingly difficult, because voice, video, they are real-time communications. Web chat, email are near real-time or non-real-time interactions, and it's very difficult to escalate a web chat to a voice call and still have a couple of other web chats, which is what you would commonly have on a desktop. It just is very difficult to do from an operational perspective, how you encourage and train agents to be able to manage those environments. Technically, it's really easy. Operationally, it's astonishingly difficult. So more commonly, we look at the ability to move between automation and agent assistance rather than switching between channels as well. So automated channel to an agent with context. And context is a good lead in really to the making your experience unique and personal. So we're in this in the same way as David talked about the paradox of the work environment. It's a paradox around the way we want information, and sometimes we might refer to this as the everything customer. But what you get is this: everybody wants to be treated fairly and the same as everyone else, but they also want a unique and a personal experience as well. So we have this: well, we know this information. Do we use it or do we not use it? But I often look at context and customer experience around what are the things that you should know about your customer. What are the things that you could know about them? But what are the things, if you should know something, know it. If they've just been on your website and they've locked themselves out of their account, or they've been trying to self-serve in a mobile application, they've had some kind of failure demand which has triggered them to interact with the contact center. What was that? Should you know that information? In the most cases, the answer is yes, you should. And if you should know it so they don't have to repeat themselves. And you understand who they are, what their value is to the organization, and treat them accordingly, and don't trap them into dumb self-service options asking them to repeat themselves. Quite often, for years I've looked at this in a very simple airline example. If I call an hour before I'm due to be flying, why am I calling? Chances are it's not press 1 to book a flight. It's probably related to the flight that I'm about to take. I'm running late, or I want to change that flight, something of that nature. So don't ask me to press 1 to book a flight if I'm flying within an hour. Use the things that you should know about your customer, and deliver a more unique and personal experience. So as organizations continue to focus on these traditional self-service flows and traditional flows, what we find is that consumers have shifted their focus, and this is creating a service gap and silos within organizations. So you have this, I can't find the service that I want on my channel of choice. My time is wasted trying to find the right content. Invariably, and we'll see this in the coming slides actually, invariably your app, your website, your call center is not the place that a customer, a consumer will go to first. It'll come later on. So they try to find the content, they try to self-serve, and they're getting the wrong content or not your content. Self-service can be annoying at times. So this sort of dumb self-service components can be extremely frustrating. You get, I'm sure we've all done this. We've tried to interact with an organization. We've been faced with a bot. How do I explain what I want, to this bot and have any kind of confidence that it's going to understand what it is I'm saying about my situation, about my unique requirements? We've somewhat been trained over the years by the sort of large telcos and banks and the open speech steering technologies that tell us to, in a few short words, please tell me why you're calling. Well, hey, you know what? We don't speak in a few short words. That's not how we communicate. But that's how we've been trained over the last few years to interact with self-service. And there's this change going on around the way a bot can handle interpretation of what it is I'm saying, rather than it having to speak in a few short words. So we'll see how that transforms as well over the coming years. It's never okay to have to repeat yourself and start over again. It was never okay 20 years ago when your banks asked you to enter your 16-digit credit card number in the IVR and then asked you again when you speak to an agent. It was cardinal sin then. It's absolutely a cardinal sin today, but it extends far beyond the entering digits into an IVR, but down to things like your verification and authentication. I've verified myself, and if I'm transferred to another part of the organization, I don't expect to have to verify myself again. Don't make me repeat myself. It's not a good idea. It really, really frustrates customers. We all know that as individuals, but as organizations really look for ways to remove that repetition out of your customer experiences. But of course, what happens when we provide these negative experiences, fundamentally it makes your organization seem disjointed, and you create these disconnected customer experiences because of silos behind each of these interactions. You might have the team over here that does social media interactions, and the team over there that does web chat, and the team over there that does voice calls. And what happens when you have those separate teams rather than unifying all of them into a single platform? You have different customer experiences, and it makes an organization feel like it's different. You get a completely different experience on one versus another, and you somewhat train your customers to try multiple ways all at the same time to contact you, and that's sort of hugely wasteful in terms of the costs that we have to apply to treating customer service. But this traditional service also misses a full journey and a set of needs we find with our consumers. I mentioned this a little earlier on, in that when most consumers start out with their needs event, only about 19% of them initially seek agent assistance, and they'll go through an IVR or an FAQ and a bot, and they'll go to an agent for resolution. Just 19%. The remaining 81% start with more of a digital first mindset. So they're going to go to the search engine, they're going to go to your apps, they're going to go to your websites, they may even be responding to a proactive notification. Now, a number of those will go on to engage potentially with intelligent self-service, or even onto an agent at that stage. But those digital entry points are usually blind to most organizations. They don't know whether customers have gone to those digital first points at the start of their journey or not. And if they are, how many are? What is the situation? What was the result? So it's a complete blind spot for most organizations. It's not really for a lack of trying. It's not that they don't want to have this, they just don't have a holistic strategy for these customer entry points. And this is where it creates what I would sometimes describe as a digital divide between consumers' expectations and what organizations are actually able to deliver. Now, fortunately at NICE, our CXone platform allows us to address the entire breadth and beyond of both the 19% initiated and also the 81% of digital first interactions. We're blessed with a extremely broad contact center portfolio that's built on our open cloud platform, but allows us to cover everything from the digital entry points through the journey orchestration, through smart self-service with prepared agents, and also be able to performance manage all of these interactions across the entire suite. And this has been probably the mainstay of NICE over the prior years before we were the leading cloud contact center provider. But when we look at when we break down a couple of these different pillars, what I wanted to start off looking at was the giving your customers a smart start to their journey. So those 81% that start with that digital intention in the first case, they're going to go to the website. How do you get your information to be the top, to be the information that is accurate into the hands of your customer? Because in so many cases, if I go to the website and I go to Google and search my needs event, it could be that I don't get information from your organization. It could be that I get information from your competitors. It could be from a third-party source. It could be a forum group where the information is not necessarily accurate. And I often think about this in the context of being a GP. I think it'd be very difficult to be a GP these days. You turn up to the GP and say, I've Googled my symptoms. I think I've got this. You need to prescribe me that. And the GP will have to walk you back from that and do a proper diagnosis on that. So the question becomes, how do we get the right information, your information, into the hands of your customer so that it's correct and they can solve their need at the first instance? So we have knowledge management solutions that allow us to provide search engine optimization to project your knowledge into the hands of your customers right at the start of their journey. Whilst we're there, it also gives the opportunity to provide predictive intentions. So we know, okay, so these are the things we know about our customer. How do we then get that into their hands right up front? So we can, before they tell you, how do we reach out to them when they're on your digital doorstep to allow them to resolve the problem they've got that you already know they have into the hands? So we have technology in our portfolio that allows us to deliver on that as well. And likewise, guided conversations. We made some very key acquisitions last year, and this sort of mobile and web guidance capability that allows us to, perhaps as a customer is filling in a form, we can make suggestions of things they can do. It could be suggestions to engage with an agent, but it could also be suggestions to engage with a bot. It could suggestions for media content such as videos, self-help videos. It could be links to the knowledge base articles that we've got in that knowledge projection component up front. So the ability to guide in real time your customers around your mobile application, around your website, is a key part of helping them to self-serve and also to track these customer journeys right in these digital entry points at the first stage. So that's probably the first pillar. The second pillar around the giving a seamless journey and journey orchestration is that we have access to over 30 different digital channels. I think it's about 35 we're up to now, somewhere around there. So your Apple Business Chat, Google Business Messaging, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Line, all of these different channels that consumers could choose to try and find help from your organization from. We can bring all of those in and provide the sort of digital first or omni-channel routing capability, where we can engage the most appropriate bot and artificial intelligence through a self-service. We can engage in all those different components across the channels through social, queue, route, report, workforce manage across all of those channels in with the maturity of a contact center platform. And increasingly, what we're also starting to see is the opportunity to do artificial intelligence routing, so real-time routing to match the correct agent to the consumer in real time. These are things that are all part of the suite and help you to provide the seamless customer journey for your customer and providing that access to your organization. And then the third pillar through here was the self-service conversations that actually work, the smart self-service. So in the same way that I mentioned a moment ago, we can apply self-service to all of those 30 plus digital channels, and to voice, and to email, and to web chat. The ability to engage in this, what to self-service, and what are the things that we should self-serve. And sometimes I think about this in that when we're looking at trying to create a self-service flow, I have this vision of people in organizations sitting around a boardroom table, meeting room table, in the days when we could do that, and all around the room are just this sort of plethora of coloured post-it notes with things scribbled on them, and people are guessing at what they think are the right things to create self-service opportunities for. Now, because our platform is across all of the voice and text-based channels, the artificial intelligence layers that we have in our platform allow us to actually understand what are customers saying, what are their behaviors, and then what are the things that we could and should automate as part of that. So it could well be that we think there is an opportunity to automate, let's choose something ridiculously simple like change of address, right? So the AI engine would be able to uncover, okay, well, you have this number of interactions that are about an address change, and if you automated this, it would mean you could then provide self-service to 60% of interactions of this type into this queue. There's your business case right there. You're no longer guessing at what is the right thing to automate. This will uncover those automations for you through the AI that we have in our platform. And again, we can apply that across all the different channels, the in-app messaging, the WhatsApp, and so on, Apple Business Chat. But likewise, when you're providing self-service, invariably the self-service engine needs to provide knowledge and leverage knowledge articles. Well, that knowledge article should be the same knowledge article that the customer could get through the search. You don't want to have to create knowledge in here and knowledge in there and knowledge in the next layer, which we'll come on to on the next slide, because you run the risk of that knowledge then being inconsistent. And what the web says is one thing, what the bot says is another, what the reality is another. So you have to have this consistency of knowledge and provide access to it, not just on the web, but in your bot and to your agent, and we'll see in a moment as well. So knowledge management's a critical component of this piece as well. And likewise, we also have the ability to reach out proactively. So once we've got things like in-app messaging, WhatsApp messaging, etc., the ability to reach out via those channels and say, hey, we've realized you just locked yourself out of your account. Would you like to go through a reset process? And actually do that proactively rather than waiting for the customer to initiate the needs event. That's a much more effective way of managing your customers' expectations. So that's the third pillar that we see through the future of customer experience. The final one I'm going to talk about today really is around the prepared agents component. So once we've got agents that are empowered with knowledge, empowered with the ability to manage the customer's needs event, have all the information they need to manage that event, we need to be able to have and provide that knowledge management to the agent as well in real time. So it could well be if we're having a chat discussion or messaging based discussion, that same knowledge that was available in the bot was available on the website should be surfaced to the agent in real time also, such that we are getting that consistent information. Because when you connect a customer with an agent, you're making two promises. You're making a promise to your customer that I will connect you to somebody that can help you. And you're promising your agent that I will connect you with someone that you can help. Fundamentally, people in a customer experience field, we're geared to want to help and solve problems. It's kind of our job. So how do we fulfill that promise? Well, we empower the agents with knowledge to be able to fulfill on that promise and allow them to actually succeed in delivering on that promise and helping the customer with the failure demand and with the needs event that they have. And we do that through guided knowledge management, but we also provide the ability to have this sort of real-time interaction guidance. So whilst many agents in a contact center are trained or recruited specifically for a degree of intuition and ability to communicate effectively and cleanly, the real-time interaction guidance can do things like tell you, hey, you know what, slow your speech down a little bit, or maybe use a bit more active listening, be a bit more empathetic, build rapport, and actually help them in real time score these components. And again, this is where artificial intelligence and the modern contact center technology and cloud technology allows us to really derive value and help an agent fulfill that promise of meeting the customer's needs. And we drive all of that through agent interfaces. And in the last session, and as David alluded to in his section as well, we can do this within our own agent client, but we can also do this embedded within the Microsoft Teams client as well, which allows us to have a really unique and powerful agent experience. And embedded single pane of glass was the word that David used. All embedded into this single agent interface as required. Now, in the last session that we ran on this topic, I introduced what I would refer to as 5 agent customer experience superpowers. And there was the super insightful power around understanding customer context, understanding customer journey. Who are they? What is their value to you? We've touched on that a little bit today. We've talked quite a bit about the super knowledgeables, about how do we fulfill that promise. And this is an area we've covered a bit more today about embedding help and knowledge and guidance and consistency all the way through the customer's journey, such that your agents can fulfill the promise that you've made to your customer. Likewise, the super intuitive superpower, providing real-time and artificial intelligence sentiment analysis to help support agents in the fulfillment of that promise. Last sessions, we talked a bit about connected and productive, about having a single desktop and connections into messaging platforms such as Microsoft Teams to allow agents to, okay, well, if they don't have the information, the knowledge, the intuition that we provide and support them with, how do we allow them to connect out to the broader organization on applications such as Microsoft Teams to actually continue to fulfill that promise and meet that first contact resolution that's so much of what we're looking for in a contact center experience for our agents. So through the course of the last 2 webinars we've run with Generation E and Microsoft over the last month, we've covered to some extent, very high level, for all 5 of these agent superpowers and about how we deliver a better customer experience both now and in the future for your organization and for your customers. So with that, I'll wrap it up my section for the moment. Hopefully you found something interesting in that section. Of course, if you have any further questions or you want to reach out, please feel free to ask any questions either in the chat or reach out to Generation E, of whom you want to hear from. Paul, at this stage, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. But before we go on to Paul, just quickly, thank you for that, Anthony, really appreciate it. But I can just imagine any contact center manager or team leader or anyone on this call today is thinking, I don't sleep at night as it is, managing the 19% of the people that actually call me without having to worry about the 81%. But I think it's a really critical study that was done, I believe, by Harvard, who actually gave us that information, and that really stood out to me as something that, from I think about the contact center reports that some people on this call are so familiar with, and all the key metrics around how can contact centers, and you talked about it around AI and knowledge management and predictive intent, guided conversations. But the agent is critical here, because the agent needs to know about what their customers have done before they actually call them. So there's a lot to unpack there. If anyone's got any questions about, things like real-time interaction guidance, because I think, Anthony, that is something where we can help agents in their conversations with customers. But what I'm interested in is how do we help customers make sense of all of that information that comes to them?
Interesting question. I think probably just on your prior point around the agent guidance and AI, one of the points I will make is that sometimes this perception that it's going to take over the work of the people. But when you look at things like interaction guidance, I'd like to look at it more as a digital co-worker, somebody there to help you out, help the agents out, help you fulfill the promise, help you get that question without them having to dive into 5 or 10 different systems to get the answers for the customers. So it's around making agents' lives easier and dealing with the problems faster and more efficiently than it is about replacing them completely. In terms of helping customers, in terms of the end patron, make sense of all this information, I think the problem is that we have to, depending on the organization, particularly if we're looking at government organizations or healthcare organizations, we have to cater not just for, we don't have the luxury of saying, right, we're just going to focus on the digitally born people or people who are going to come to this channel. Quite often organizations have to cater for the entire breadth of citizens in their cohort. So the challenge then becomes that consistency, right? So yes, you'll have people that are going to go, oh, yeah, I don't want to call the call center. I don't want to do that. I'm going to go to Google first or Bing or wherever it may be. And so then it's consistently getting that information. You need to cover all of these bases consistently and uniformly. And how you get the customers to make sense of it? Well, clarity of communication is important regardless of how you do these things, right? You can't have a knowledge-based article where you need a PhD in astrophysics to be able to understand what it is that it's telling you and asking you to do. So you still have to have that clarity of communication, but you still need to be able to provide that on the web, in the app, over the voice, to the agent. You have to have that consistency across all the channels, Michael.
Interesting. Yeah, the great thing is that we're talking about the future of CX, but there's applications available today, really, that will help organizations get to the future, if you like. And I think with the analytics overlay that we can provide, all interactions will help customers and contact centers understand exactly what is going on with their customers and able to provide a better experience for them. So I think that is the future of customer experience.
I think it's interesting to note, actually, that we as vendors sometimes forget that whilst we have all this technology and all of these channels, with 30 plus digital channels available in our portfolio today, for many organizations that is the future. But then next week, next month, there could be another channel that's replaced the channels we see as the main ones today. So you need that platform that can move and scale. And that's another advantage that in our region in particular, here in Australia and New Zealand, where we don't have, I guess, the economies of scale that you would get in the US and the UK and other areas. We need all of that latest and greatest technology because we tend to be early adopters of technology. Our consumers are early adopters of technology, but we need that on a small scale. And the ubiquity of access that cloud contact center platforms give us allows us to be able to service those channels much more easily without having to do a 3-month business case, a 6-month project rollout, and then delivery of something that is already out of date. So by the time you deliver it, so platforms like CXone, where we have built-in capability for workforce management, for analytics, for all of these different channels, gives our region in particular a huge leg up on achieving whatever is tomorrow, whatever is in the future, that historically we haven't been able to really leverage in this geography.
Excellent. Thank you, Anthony. Really appreciate that. Great insight. The next speaker is Paul Bloom. And Paul, have you got your guitar? Because I'm interested to know if you are...
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen? Oh, it's a shame.
Not going to happen. Too rusty, man.
Mark Bennett's a little bit disappointed, but I thought that was a nice. Maybe you can take us out with a bit of a tune on your axe. But
I've got Crowded House standing by on Spotify.
But look, Generation E is a great partner of ours, nice, and yeah, we're really thrilled that that we've got this relationship in New Zealand as well as Australia. So Generation E will bring it all together, both what David was talking about in relation to Microsoft and what we talk about in relation to CXone. So Paul, if you can give us an overview of Gen E, that would be...
Yeah, of course. Of course, yeah, it's no mistake that we're standing here, or virtually so speaking, with NICE and with Microsoft and Generation E as well. The sort of three pillars, they make a really strong, approach to this space. Now, just looking at Generation E is new to New Zealand, of course, in that I think it makes us a year old in New Zealand, actually, just starting earlier this month. But that doesn't make us new to this industry in any way, shape or form, been around in Australia for quite some time. And today, looking at the accomplishments and position where Generation E find themselves, certainly does attest to the skill sets and the kind of people that are employed and that are working together with this organization. For example, we've got a number of MVPs. We've got a number of Microsoft certified masters as well. And just recently, before when we had our previous session, we didn't, this wasn't announced yet, but just last week, I think it is, Generation E got an award from NICE for being the fastest growing partner in Australia and New Zealand. So there you go. The proof is in the pudding. So certainly we have lots of people who are able to help out in those areas. Now, just coming back for a moment, perhaps you were expecting to see Mr. Dolly, who's our country manager. Of course, we call everyone Paul in New Zealand. So as the backup in that space, my role, for those of you who don't know, I get into the more sort of technical dive sessions, but also speak at this level as well as needed. My role is focused on modern productivity, and I'm an architect in that space. So that gives me the freedom to talk across these different avenues within the Teams ecosystem. And of course, more importantly for what we're talking to today is the capabilities within CXone. And so you've seen the product. It's pretty powerful. And let's just say that you got the opportunity to see it all begin here, because I'm sure that as time goes by, we're going to see lots of movement in this space. And as you can agree, the entire ecosystem within Microsoft as well is progressing and moving so fast, so incredibly fast. We've had, I think Satya said something to the effect of 5 to 6 years of growth in the team space functionally and looking at all of the things that have been going on because of COVID. So COVID has been a real problem, but at the same time, many organizations had to rapidly adapt, find those gaps, solve them, and move on. And now, as this global experiment is coming to an end, I guess, the perception of people's thinking has changed, hasn't it? The idea of hybrid work. As we saw the numbers earlier, some people are keen to get back to the office, others want to stay hybrid. How is this going to pan out? Who is going to lead that technology charge? Well, watch this space, because we're geared for it. We're ready to go. And I'm sure that you wouldn't have joined if you're not interested. So please do let us know if you'd like to have a further catch up. I don't want to just blab on unnecessarily, but I do want you to appreciate that we are ready to help you with your contact center requirements. And even if you just like to workshop the possibilities of what can be done, or want a bit of a bird's eye view of what's planned, what's coming in the future, I'm sure we can tie something up in those areas. And I'm not going to go any further than that, other than I hope you did get your meal, and I hope it's been really pleasant.
And if you didn't get your meal, you will get a voucher that will enable you to get your meal and share it with your family as well. Thank you very much, Paul. Really appreciate that. Thanks to Anthony as well, and to David as well from Microsoft. Really appreciate your time and your insights. If there's no questions in the chat window, I just want to say thank you. Please reach out to Paul and the Pauls and the team at Generation E, because they will be able to help you out with anything that you need in relation to the topics that we covered today. But on that note, hopefully we talk in the near future, and hopefully some of us Australians can actually make it to New Zealand in the next couple of months and meet you face to face. But on that note, thanks for your time today, and we really hope you got some real insights today. Thank you. Cheers.